show. I had no great way of transitioning to this topic.
Mm-mm.
Supreme Court is started
Who's ready
their
to argue?
they have Supreme Court started its oral arguments for the vaccine mandate, and Crazy has more information for us.
Oral.
Please present your
Welcome to the
oral
NAKE'd
demonstration.
So, this has started the argument about if the president could instate the vax mandate if it's legal or constitutionally allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to a bunch of the arguments coming out, it is sounding like they're going to strike down the federal mandate. But it does sound like they're going to leave it open to state mandates, which is perfectly fine. I'm for if New York wants to mandate it, I won't go to New York. Simple as that. But then again, you know, everybody has the right to body autonomy, right? Like that. If we're gonna push that, then we got to pick that lane, and that's where I'm at on it. I don't think it's a good look that the administration has gone. And Judge Clarence Thomas made this point that they've gone through a lot of avenues to try to force this down. So it looks like they're just scattershotting and seeing what hits. And that's not a good way to run legal battles. Let's throw it at the wall and see what sticks. So
I think it's also important, like, hearing what all the justices had to say, like John Roberts, he remarked that he's like, this has never been done before. So yeah, the Supreme Court has heard things about vaccination mandates, but in this capacity, it's a lot different. And in those cases, we're a lot different. And you know, it's never been done before. And honestly, a lot of the justices seem to have the mentality of like, this is not a Supreme Court issue. This is a federal state issue at the very most. And like Amy Coney Barrett, one of the newest justices, she says, you know, it reaches way too broadly over these large employers, like industries like meatpacking and dental office. Yeah, they're subject to regulations, but, you know, not like landscapers or other type of industries that don't have these regulations. So then all of a sudden you're going to force these regulations onto them that is not typically the norm. And I thought that was an interesting perspective because I haven't really considered that. And then you have like your liberal justices that are saying, well, you know, this pandemic has killed nearly 1 million people. And basically 2 million, like out of this, if this were to happen, right? If this was like a federal statute, out of this, 22 million people would be vaxxed, preventing about 250 hospitalizations, which fine. But at the same time, it's the administration doesn't have that reach in terms of regulations. I think personally, it's your body, your choice. If you don't want to get a vaccine, that's fine. But there are consequences to not getting a vaccination, like not being able to fly on an airplane. That's a public safety measure. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that you should force anybody to get the vaccine. But that's just my take on it.
So, but I mean, why can you restrict public means, right? So in order to properly say that you're going to restrict a certain population of the United States from using air travel, then you're going to have to make sure that the air industry gets no government subsidies or any government help in any way, because you're still asking those people to pay for that. Mm-hmm. And right now, the airline industry in the United States would collapse overnight if we took away the government subsidies from it.
Yeah, and that's a super important point. It's because they receive federal money.
That's where I think it comes in on it shouldn't be federally mandated to exclude citizens of the population if those citizens' tax dollars still have to go to fund that organization or go to subsidies to that company in any way. That is one of the reasons why I don't think Google and Twitter should have the right to ban Congress people and city presidents or other public figures who are using the platform for public means. That
But
so
it's not a
you
public
can-
platform,
you can-
though. It's a private
But it
organization.
is-
It's a privately owned platform that's available to
but
the
it
public.
is a private organization,
Mhm.
but it is a publicly subsidized platform. It does take taxpayer money, and it is used as a what do you call it, a forum, a public forum. So under the public
Like
forum
your
law,
town square.
your town square, there you go. So under the certain laws and by that we already have passed, like Twitter itself would be considered a public square, right? So your public speech should be protected there.
But it's
I mean, well, that's that's a big question, and we need legal litigation, I think, to get a good answer on that. And that's why I like that they are taking this to the Supreme Court and pushing, and we're actually getting to hear about this mandate, because there is a lot of questions and a lot of issues that we're suffering from. And I think if we get some clear legal delegation on it, it would help dramatically. Like if the Supreme Court would have said something about the election, I think we would have avoided a lot of the conflict that came after that.
That's a good point.
I can
Because
agree
there
with
was
that.
what 16 cases in front of them over it.
So what do you think? Like, when will they come to a decision? Like, I know that the Supreme Court is kind of like being expeditious with their docket, but I think they have a lot of other issues at hand that they're trying to get through. So when do you think that we'll have like a final ruling?
I don't think we'll see a ruling on this one. I think they're going to hear it out and then they're going to kick it down and say this isn't a federal issue, this is a state issue. And so that will set a precedent of more or less states can do what they want on enacting a vax mandate or not. And then,
honestly, I think that's the best plan of action.
It is.
If you have hot spots in certain area, that's your prerogative to figure that out for your own people. And honestly, it comes clean in election day. Like you can't blame the federal government. You can only, blame your own, the way that you're leading. Or on the vice versa, okay, this has worked out great. Our economy is this, our hospitalizations are that.
So to quote Biden himself to the governors, there is nothing the federal government can do to stop COVID. It is a state matter. And that right there says everything about this lawsuit.
Well, there it is.
I mean, that's quote Biden exactly. That's what he said. There's no federal solution.
It's just so dumb. It's so embarrassing.
And so, I mean, but that's why I think it's really important that we hear this out in court, because this is a big overreach in, I think, the federal government. I do think this is a state. And I think it is okay for a state like New York to implement the mandate, because you do have the option to move to another state. When you come to mandating in industries like the airline or the bus industry or Amtrak, there's no other option, right? So like that's the biggest thing, like you bring up Twitter. The biggest thing is I can't go to Parler anymore because Twitter and Amazon made sure to shut that down so that nobody else can use it, right? Like there's no alternative, or I forget what ruling it is, but there's certain rulings like in men and women's sports, right? Like it's okay to have a men's division and a women's division as long as there's a clear-cut division for each person so everybody can compete, right? When you look at Twitter is set up in a leftist perspective, right? The people that run it, the people that where it is stationed have a more left perspective of the world, right? So when they implement rules that only apply to them, then you're forcing other people to live under those rules, and there's no alternative to those rules, right? Like we can't, as digital creators, we can't ignore Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we
true.
can't.
So if there's a matter of where like a state can mandate it and you can go to another state and live your life happily, I would be okay with that. But the federal mandate where there's no options is where I think is a big overreach of the federal government. And from listening to the oral arguments, I believe that's where the Supreme Court is leaning towards. That this is the majority of a state matter.
Well, what about other states like Florida, where Ron DeSantis let like 100,000 or a million COVID tests expire, where he consistently just downplays the vaccine and hasn't set up restrictions, or just continues to allow people to just go in and out of their everyday lives. Like Florida's been a hotspot time and time again.
He's a governor, not a king. I mean,
no, yeah,
he
but
can't control people. He's doing what his constituents want. So at the end of the day, however you feel about Ron DeSantis, if you listen to the people of Florida, they're loving him. He is everything that they want right now, and that's fine. I think people in Florida should live how people in Florida want to live. People in Texas should live how people in Texas want to live. And I don't think Florida should be, I don't think New York should be mandating how people in Florida live.
okay.
Especially seeing as last week, New York alone was 25% of cases of the United States, right?
Wow.
We're talking on,
Damn.
yeah, out of the entire United States, they were 25% of known cases, and they are the heaviest vaccinated, heaviest restricted. They have mask mandates, vax mandates. You can't enter a restaurant if you're 5 years older and you're not vaccinated, right? But there's still the majority of cases in the country.
You can't
statewide.
dine in a restaurant.
Yeah.
One of my direct reports just moved to New York, and they were telling me, oh, like I didn't have my vaccination card, so I couldn't eat in this restaurant. I had to eat outside where it was like snowing. It was just a really bad time for them.
and yeah, and we got to understand that everybody's a little different, and we can't just one size fits all policies are not going to work. And I think this one size fits all is a horrible idea. And even in these oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court, they said the Biden administration's lawyer has said, oh, the vaccination does not stop the spread of COVID-19. So vaccinated people are still going to spread it. So at the end of the day, what is the vax mandate accomplishing? Like, what is its goal? That's the question.
And that's a totally understandable viewpoint. You know, like I was thinking about it too, especially like with COVID COVID transmissions, the amount of impact that it's had on people who've already been vaccinated or had booster shots. This latest strain, you know, is a lot more contagious. Yes, it's a little bit more mild, but if it's not doing what it should be doing, then why are we having all this conversation and debate against it? And honestly, that just comes from, I guess, like my own speculation. Like, I don't know data or numbers or anything like that, like off the top of my head, but everything you hear, I can see the perspective of why is this a mandate if it's not effective, if social distancing, masking up in during hot spots or whatever, or in certain situations is totally acceptable and, you know, it's fine. Yeah.
See, but that's the thing, right? So as a human being, as one person, I can wake up tomorrow morning and I can put a mask on. And I can go and I can get a shot at any corner around here, or I can go get in line for a test. Like, all of that has been readily available, and they've done a decent job of making all of those items available. But no matter how many times you try to give something to somebody, if they don't want it, they don't want it. Like, you can't force it upon them at that point. And I think that's the point we've gotten. Like, it's readily available and everybody has the option. Like, in like the mask mandate. I was against it from the beginning, right? Because if the mask is effective and it does anything, then you should be totally comfortable wearing your mask, and you're protecting yourself. You're doing everything you can, right? Because there's somebody down the street not wearing a mask. You can't run up to that person and try to tell them how to live their life and try to control that person. It's not going to work. It's not going to be a cohesive society at that point. That's authoritarianism.
That's where I differ in opinion. Like if the way masks work isn't just you wearing it, it has more impact of everybody wearing it. But I understand your point of mandating others to do it. To me, it just makes sense. Like, you're protecting yourself. You could be protecting other people. Just put on the fucking mask. Like, it's not that big of a deal. On the flip side of it, I can also see from the perspective of, why are you so pressed for me to have this mask on me? You know, like, or why are you so pressed to put a vaccine in me? Like, what's the overall goal here? And I can understand being suspicious of that. But at the same time, when it comes to public safety, like, it should be a no-brainer. Just wear a mask. Like, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't impact you in any other way than a minor inconvenience.
Well, you're making a good point. But also, at a certain time, go for somebody who has taken 3 shots and wears a mask. Like our president, right? He was triple vaccinated, right? He's taken the 2 shots and the booster. He wears the double mask. If he doesn't look comfortable in the situation, how is forcing me into your uncomfortable situation gonna make you more comfortable, right? Like, it. So you're saying I need to wear a mask to protect you, even though you've taken 3 vaccine shots and you're wearing a mask. At what point is me taking it gonna affect you anymore? Like, how are you any safer than you already are?
Yeah, I'm not talking about vaccines. I'm talking about just like mask wearing in general and social distancing.
But that's what I'm saying. It all comes together because the people who are like the mask mandates, the people who are pushing it, and the people who get upset when you're out in public, or the people who have been vaccinated and wear a mask on a regular basis. Like, that's on average the rule, not the exception. So if you're not going to be comfortable with it, how is that going to convince me to be comfortable with it?
I don't really understand what you're asking. I'm not uncomfortable wearing a mask or getting a vaccine.
But at a certain point, no matter how many vaccines and how long you've wore a mask, you're still not comfortable to be without a mask. You don't have confidence in the vaccine, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, the way it's being projected by people who...
I gotcha.
You don't have confidence in masks. You don't have confidence in the vaccine. So you want me to take the vaccine and you want me to wear a mask so that you feel more comfortable with...
Well, I think, too, it's
situation.
Just like... It's like, I don't really care what anybody else does. Like, my personal... I don't go anywhere. Like, first of all, I'm injured, so I can't go anywhere. And second of all, like, you know, I choose not to participate in certain events because I know that it could be a super spreader, you know, thing. And that's my prerogative. And I understand it from the other side of, you know, of like, well, it is my prerogative to take place or participate in these events or do these type of things or not wear a mask and not to get the vaccine. It's your choice. Ultimately, I just don't understand the logic of, you know, I guess the vaccines regardless, because I feel a little conflicted with it. I feel like I would get the booster. I still haven't gotten the booster yet. But I would get the booster. I would try to take any measure that I can to prevent, you know, a hospitalization, really. But that's my own personal health choice. That's not your health choice. And I just feel that people forget that. They get so caught up in like on the flip side of it too. Oh, like, you wearing a mask, you fucking snowflake. Like, I've seen those interactions, you know, and on the flip side, I've seen people give dirty looks to other people that don't wear masks or that don't social distance. So I don't know what the answer is here, but people just need to stop being so shitty at the end of the day.
That's at the end of the day. I think that was it. Just, can we just stop telling other people how to live their life? No matter what it is. Like,
yeah. Crazy times. We'll have to agree to disagree. Per usual.
But I mean, I don't know. I've through all this watching how people react. It's like, yeah, I can say I made fun of people who are driving by themselves in their car with a mask on. It at a certain point, we have to start being comfortable with the world around us and accepting that there are risks to living life and start living life again.
I just think it's a different time right now. It's not just living life; it's being safe while doing so. I mean, with this variant alone, kids rates are like through the roof that are getting COVID right now.
So
hospitalizations are up.
Yeah. So Judge Sotomayor in the oral arguments quoted a statistic that was way wrong. Just way to put it. So she on record says that there's like 100,000 child hospitalizations right now. And the CDC number on CNN, the CDC director it was on Fox News that she did another interview and corrected Judge Sotomayor and said it's actually 3,500, not 100,000.
3,500?
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's like a pretty big discrepancy.
but so, you know, that comes back to it, right? Like, these are the people making the decisions about this. And that is
it doesn't sway public trust at all.
It's hard to have faith in
mismanagement of information.
Yeah.
And that's fair too. That's totally fair to say, especially because we live in a time where you can't trust any information that comes out of any news network. Or even like the CDC has lost a lot of faith. Like their recent ruling of, like, you know, we had the 14 days, the 10 days, the 5 days, back to 10 days, back to 5 days. People are like, what is even up anymore? Like all these agencies have lost so much public trust that I can totally understand how somebody would not want to not listen to what they had to say, but also not trust what they had to say. And that's totally fair.
I know it will definitely be interesting. We do have a huge docket of Supreme Court cases coming up over the next couple weeks. So this is just the kickoff of them. And it kicked off big time.
I mean, clearly.
When did you say that we'll see the results?
There's no telling with them. They move on their own time frame. But from what they're sounding like and what they've said so far, that they're just going to kick it back to the lower courts. They're not going to. The Supreme Court doesn't make a ruling unless they absolutely have to.
I think that's fair. I think we should probably do everything we can before we set a national precedent on something.
I mean, look at how long it took for the infringement against Google to come out. 2 years. Blizzard is still being
yeah, I was
sued.
just about to mention.
Yeah.
Look how quickly the whole Epstein Maxwell case just wrapped up. Everything locked away and nobody knows what happened.
I still firmly believe Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh, did you hear that the two guards of his cells, the day after Maxwell's trial, all charges were dropped. They were set free. No questions asked.
That's not okay.
And an hour after her ruling, all her files were sealed, so nobody can see them. Nobody can know what happened.
I feel like those should be public record. If we're paying these judges tax dollars, it should be public record, unless a minor.
They seal them for public figures. So,
boo.
But Prince Andrew, who was dragged into the mud a little bit on this, is facing his own courts in the UK. So maybe we'll see something.
That'll be interesting. See a royal go through the courts.
Mm-hmm. But what are we doing?
Why do we even have a royal family anymore?
Yeah,
Decoration.
oh yeah, they're still the largest landowners in the world.
Yeah, it's true.
That's what makes them so powerful. They own more land than any other family.
Well, that wraps up another great episode, and don't forget to join our amazing and supportive community on Discord.
In our Discord, you can find game nights, watch parties, food picks, Dungeons and Dragons, and more. What's not to love about that? We have a little something for everyone. Head over to our website, officialmillennials.com, and you'll find more info, especially our featured Gamer of the Week.
Speaking of something for everyone, we have a book club. We read a book almost every month and talk through it together. We also have a special perk for our subs to discuss other books in a series called Chapter 2.
Don't forget to swing by YouTube and drop us a follow at Official Millennials. You can also find us on Twitter at MillsOfficial. We appreciate all the support, and y'all have a good one.
This is an Official Millennials production.